My name is Scott Lupold. I'm the Director of Sports Turf at the University of Southern California. I'm responsible for the oversight of all of the fields on both the campus as well as the LA Memorial Coliseum. Under our purview, we've got the Coliseum field, baseball stadium. We've got a soccer/lacrosse stadium. We've got the football practice field, and we've also got a practice golf green area all on the campus of USC. And we're actually in the middle of building two brand new facilities, both a brand new baseball stadium and a brand new women's stadium, which will host both soccer and lacrosse. Both of the brand new facilities we're building will both be Tahoma 31. Every field we've put in since 2021 has been Tahoma, as well as our baseball field was Tahoma before it was demoed to build a new one. When we first started, it was we were just looking for something better than what we had. We had gone down the road with a few varieties, and kind of liked them at first, and then went, So I was open to trying something new. Everything I had heard about this variety it always seemed to jive with what we're trying to promote the other ones to do. But you had to make them do that. This one, you kind of do what you'd like to do to it, and it's working with you as opposed to against you based on the way that it likes to grow. In football, what we've found is the cleanest fields are always cool season fields. Well, how can you get the Bermuda grass to play as clean as a cool season field? And the reason these cool season fields play cleaner, in my opinion, is that all of the grass is growing vertical. So if you can get a Bermuda grass, which does recover faster, that has a tendency to try to push a vertical growth, the cleats just go into the grass and come out much cleaner and don't remove as much plants. It seems to be the characteristic of this grass. And so that really kind of jives with what we're trying to accomplish. In general, if the field is not tearing up, that triggers a whole slew of things that you're not worrying about, right? The field maintains its integrity much longer. You're not, anytime you have a divot, that's removing plants. If the divot is bigger, then you're going to wear out faster. So if the field in general just doesn't wear out faster, it's inevitably a much safer surface, a much stronger surface. And what I feel like this variety does, for us, is it keeps its integrity for a longer period of time just because it doesn't wear as much. So our whole name of the game here is basically trying not even so much to recover in general, but try to mitigate damage in the first place. And that's what the nature of these growing characteristics have done for us. There's so many individual plants in this grass that you don't really have to run to cover damage. Usually what we see here is that any sort of divoting we get, there's so many plants that kind of come and fill from the middle. So you're kind of growing back and not growing over, which really seems to cut recovery time, in half. And then at that point, the recovery that you get is a mature plant. It's not runners running over the top of a divot and then having to re-tack down and anchor themselves that way. That's a longer process. When we get a divot, it's almost more like a deep scalp on Tahoma, as opposed to completely removing the plant from the from the divot and having to cover it back up. The growing characteristics of it are just a lot different. We've used a lot of other varieties that it doesn't seem to be as deep of a growing point. This one you can really, I think you can get the mowing heights low on virtually all of the varieties, but this one seems to enjoy it almost. The cleat almost ends up making it like a deep scalp as opposed to a complete plant removal. And so the nature of that is, creates just a much quicker recovery time. One thing that this variety has seemed to, again, getting back to the nature of how it grows more vertically than others, we really haven't had to do a ton of verticutting per se on it. What we've really leaned in towards is more scalping, grooming, and kind of springtime raking to just keep it from leaning over on itself. again, with the nature of it not kind of growing into an interweb where you kind of have to get in and slice these long stolons, that's really not the nature of how this grows. We've found that in our renovations, we can accomplish a lot of the same ideals by simply getting a springtime rake in it and grooming reels daily that just kind of lift anything that's gotten a little bit sideways and cutting it off. We haven't found that, like in other varieties, deep we get this web of stolons that kind of run together, and that's been a big deal because when you're playing on these fields, basically, I mean, there's virtually people on our practice football field 11 months a year, so there's not a lot of time for crazy renovations. So being able to control it year round without having to, shut the field down for 3-4 weeks at a time on a heavy deep verticut, it's been awesome to be able to keep the field in check for long periods of time without that nice window to do maintenance. What we found last year is we sprayed out our ryegrass the day the season, or the day after the season was over in May. I think it was late May, and we were full Bermuda in, like, I think 3.5 weeks. That includes the infield, that includes the front of home plate, that includes in and around home plate, which turned into predominantly ryegrass areas during the season due to traffic and shade and all that other stuff that happens in and around home plate. But it was the quickest transition we've ever been through on an overseeded field by far. It wasn't even close. When your recovery is that much faster, if it doesn't wear near as much, you just don't need to use the same amount of nitrogen that you might on another variety to push it to recover. It just simply physically doesn't have as much recovery that it has to do, and that's a big deal, because if now you're not using an excess amount of nitrogen, your disease pressures are lower. Obviously, you're not spending as much money. There's a lot of benefit to that. This one is its own color. I mean, it's kind of got a really beautiful olive green type color, and when you control the leaves the way we've tried to, you can get a really, really, really beautiful leaf blade to go along with that color. It likes to leaf first before it'll start pushing stolons. So especially if it's controlled right, at 3/8 of an inch, you can really get almost 3/8 of an inch of just leafing for a little more extended period of time than other varieties. And then what happens with that is now you can stripe this grass and actually have it lean over to create a really, really cool looking, almost, almost cool season grass-esque striping for you.